Not all mistakes deserve forgiveness. Some of them aren't mistakes. They are decisions. Premeditated, intentional, and cold-blooded. Made when they knew better, but didn't care. If you've ever been lied to, disrespected, used, or emotionally controlled, you know exactly what I mean. Forgiveness without clarity is betrayal, not of them, but of yourself. And today, we are going to talk about 5 things a woman can do that you should never forgive. Not to punish her, but to protect your peace. Comment, I choose peace, if you're done tolerating disrespect in the name of love. Number 1. She lies without guilt. She doesn't flinch when she lies, because she knows she has done it before and gotten away with it, and every time you forgive it, teaches her your truth has a price and your peace is for sale, and if someone can lie to you calmly while watching you trust them, they don't fear losing you, because they already calculated the risk and decided your presence is not worth the truth. And this isn't just dishonesty, it's betrayal disguised as charm, and it's not just what she says, it's how she says it with a steady voice and dry eyes and a rehearsed script, because this kind of lying isn't born from fear, it's born from power, and a woman who lies like this isn't trying to protect the relationship. She's trying to control the narrative, and the more you doubt yourself, the more she wins, and you begin to question your memory. Rewrite your instincts, apologize for being suspicious, while she tightens her grip on the version of reality she wants you to accept, because if she can make you question your own eyes, she can make you accept anything. And the more times you accept it, the easier it becomes for her to lie again until truth becomes optional and your voice becomes irrelevant. And then you realize this isn't about trust anymore, it's about survival, and how many betrayals you're willing to absorb just to keep the peace. And when you stay after the first lie, you teach her that pain is the price of your loyalty, and she will keep cashing that check until you are emotionally bankrupt, because lying is not about the facts, it's about your self-worth. And every time she watches you catch her and stay, she learns that your tolerance is higher than your self-respect, and you think she will change. But why would she change when there's no consequence? And this is where most lose themselves, thinking forgiveness is strength, when in reality it becomes the very weapon used against them. And if you find yourself explaining the obvious, replaying conversations, rereading messages, trying to find the exact moment things shifted, you are already under the influence of deception, and a person who values you will not put you in a position to question your sanity. And if you catch someone in a lie, and they get defensive instead of apologetic, they're not sorry they lied, they're sorry they got caught. And in that moment, you are no longer dealing with a misunderstanding. You are facing a person who sees manipulation as a strategy and emotional confusion as a tool. And if you have ever walked away from a conversation more confused than when you entered it, ask yourself why and pay attention. Because when someone lies to you with full awareness, you are no longer in a relationship built on love. You are participating in one built on control, and you cannot love someone through a lie. You cannot reason with deception, and you cannot fix someone who benefits from your confusion. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to see clearly, because the brain starts to normalize dysfunction to protect you from cognitive dissonance. And soon your peace becomes dependent on walking on eggshells, and your happiness becomes tied to the absence of conflict rather than the presence of truth. And this is how emotional decay begins, not with yelling or fighting, but with subtle silence, with dismissive shrugs, with smiles that don't reach the eyes. And if you're still hoping that one more conversation, one more chance, one more explanation will fix it, understand this. People don't change when they're comfortable. They change when they lose access. And if you keep rewarding lies with presence, you are training someone that truth is optional and access to your life does not require integrity. And so what do? You stop over-explaining. You stop defending your position. You stop collecting evidence, and instead you start observing behavior without emotion, and you trust patterns over promises, because people may lie with words, but they tell the truth with repetition. And if someone lies once and owns it with remorse, maybe there's hope. But if they lie and then lie again to cover the first, you're not in love, you're in denial. And when the time comes to walk away, it won't be easy because your mind has been stretched to doubt its own clarity. But the moment you reclaim your truth, you reclaim your strength. And when you walk away from someone who thought lying to you was normal, you're not losing love, you're losing manipulation. And what you gain is worth more than the false peace you've been surviving on. And you begin to rebuild, not with bitterness, but with boundaries, not with anger, but with awareness. And this is how you heal, by recognizing that love is not supposed to hurt this way, that truth is not supposed to be negotiated, and that forgiveness is not meant to be a free pass for repeated betrayal, but a tool to release yourself from pain without reopening the door to the one who caused it. And so the next time you catch the lie, the next time your gut tells you something's off, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't wait for more proof. Because truth doesn't always come with evidence, but it always comes with peace. And when you finally act on that feeling, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect, you will feel a power inside you that no apology could ever give you. And that's when you know you've grown. Not because you let them stay, but because you finally chose to leave. And that's when you know you've grown. Not because you let them stay, but because you finally chose to leave. And if you're ready to go even deeper into this level of clarity, discipline, and self-respect, the Stoic Relationship Blueprint is now available in audiobook format, made specifically for men who are tired of second-guessing themselves and are ready to reclaim their peace without apology, packed with timeless Stoic principles designed to help you navigate relationships with strength, boundaries, and calm authority. This isn't just a book, it's a new foundation, and now you can carry that wisdom with you while jogging, walking, driving, or winding down after a long day, because transformation should move with you, not wait for perfect conditions, and once you get it, it's yours forever. A lifelong companion that will speak to you differently every time you return to it. So ask yourself, what is the cost of staying the same? How many more betrayals will it take before you choose you? And if not now, when? The link is in the comments. Number 2. She disrespects your boundaries. She disrespects your boundaries because she knows you'll explain instead of enforce, because she knows you'll turn discomfort into a dialogue instead of a decision, and every time you set a line and let it be crossed without consequence, you teach her that your limits are flexible and your values negotiable, and it doesn't happen all at once. It starts small, like ignoring your request for space during arguments, turning every disagreement into a spectacle, brushing off your serious tone with jokes, using your vulnerabilities as punchlines later, and when you raise concerns, she smirks. Not because she misunderstands, but because she understands all too well that if she can wear you down emotionally, if she can drag you into constant clarification, then she controls the frame, and once she controls the frame, she controls the relationship, because in her world, your boundaries become suggestions, and her behavior becomes the standard. And this isn't about love or misunderstanding. It's about dominance, and you become the one always adjusting, always shrinking, always tiptoeing around moods and reactions that have nothing to do with mutual respect, and everything to do with testing how much control she has. And when you try to enforce boundaries, she flips it, and now you're too sensitive, too rigid, too serious. And if you buy into that framing, you start to self-edit. You start to say less, expect less, tolerate more, and all in the name of keeping the peace that doesn't actually exist, because peace without respect is just emotional submission, and this is how men lose themselves, not because they don't know their worth, but because they get convinced that asserting it is abuse, and so they trade clarity for compromise and slowly forget what it feels like to be valued and not tolerated, and you begin to second-guess yourself, wondering if you're asking for too much when all you asked for was consistency, when all you wanted was to not be mocked when you speak, or ignored when you withdraw, or shamed when you decide to be silent instead of explode. And this is the trap. The more you try to explain your boundaries, the less they matter, because real boundaries aren't explained, they're demonstrated. And if someone needs a TED Talk every time you ask for decency, they are not confused, they are challenging you. And the only reason they keep winning is because you keep thinking love can exist without respect. And the truth is, it can't, and it never will. And it's not because you didn't try hard enough, it's because you stayed long after you knew your words didn't carry weight. And when you stay in that place long enough, you start to believe that losing yourself is normal, and that's when resentment grows, silently, like a vine around your neck, choking your peace day by day, until you wake up and realize you're walking on eggshells in your own house, measuring your tone, filtering your feelings, erasing your opinions just to avoid conflict. And if you're there now, you know exactly what I mean. And if you're tired of pretending that every disrespect was a misunderstanding, you have to make a decision, not a speech, not a debate, a decision. And that decision is to stop chasing basic respect and start requiring it. And it's not loud, it's not violent, it's a quiet shift where you stop repeating yourself, you stop checking if your tone was too harsh, you stop writing novels to justify your boundaries, you just act. And that action is distance, not out of spite, but out of necessity, because someone who disrespects you repeatedly after you've explained yourself clearly does not value you. They value the control they get when you keep explaining and hoping and returning, and when you finally stop doing that, when you remove yourself from the cycle, the power dynamic collapses, and they either rise to meet your standards or reveal that they never intended to in the first place. And either way you win, because you reclaim your time, your voice, your energy. And no, it won't be easy at first because you've trained yourself to confuse disrespect with passion, chaos with connection, resistance with love. But that ends now because real strength isn't in how much you can tolerate. It's in how little you settle for once you know what you're worth. And if you want to change your life, start here. Stop arguing with people about the lines they already knew they were crossing. Stop justifying your worth to people who benefit from you forgetting it. Stop trying to heal in the same environment that broke you, and get clear, not emotional, not bitter, clear, and act like someone who refuses to be disrespected twice. And when you do that, the right people will honor you without reminders, and the wrong people will disappear without closure. Either way, you win because you finally understand that peace is not something you ask for. It's something you enforce, and the moment you prioritize peace over presence is the moment you start living with self-respect. Number 3, she manipulates your emotions. She doesn't need to raise her voice to control you because she learned early that silence can scream louder than words, and withdrawal can hurt more than shouting. And what makes it worse is how she plays it so well, so softly, so strategically. One moment, she's the warmest person you've ever met, and the next, she's cold and distant, and you don't know what you did wrong, but you start apologizing anyway, hoping to bring back the version of her that made you feel safe, not realizing that was part of the act, that emotional manipulation isn't always loud, it's often disguised as connection, and it's built on patterns of guilt, unpredictability, and power shifts that are subtle enough to make you question yourself instead of her. And that's exactly the goal. Because if she can control how you feel, she can control what you do. And the worst part is how she uses your empathy against you, how she cries just enough to make you feel like the villain, how she disappears just long enough for you to beg, how she praises you just enough to keep you hoping. And soon you become addicted to the cycle, chasing her approval like a drug, confusing relief with love, mistaking her reappearance as reconciliation, when in fact it's just a reset of the control, and it's so hard to explain to anyone, because from the outside, it doesn't look like abuse. It looks like miscommunication, like emotional differences, but inside you're walking through a maze of unspoken rules where her moods dictate your day, where her silence becomes punishment, where your joy is dependent on her validation, and you slowly lose yourself, not all at once, but piece by piece, trading your peace for moments of her attention, and when you try to bring it up, she flips it, tells you you're overthinking, too emotional, that she was just tired, just joking, just reacting, and because you love her, you give her the benefit of the doubt again and again until there's nothing left to doubt except yourself. And this is how emotional manipulation works. It's not about love or honesty or conflict resolution. It's about conditioning, breaking down your ability to think clearly so that her behavior becomes the standard and your pain becomes your fault. And it's subtle at first, like her questioning why you need space, why you're being distant, even when you've explained yourself. Then she starts guilt-tripping you when you focus on your goals, shaming you when you're not emotionally available, and when you express discomfort, she frames it as insecurity. So now you don't just feel misunderstood, you feel ashamed for having needs, and once that shame sets in, you start silencing yourself, thinking maybe if you just work harder, love better, give more, then she'll stop pulling away, stop blaming you for her unhappiness, stop treating your care as weakness, and the moment you tie your worth to her emotional state, you've handed over your power. And now she decides when you feel like a man, when you feel heard, when you feel good enough, and you start living in her emotional weather, dressing your words based on her mood, adjusting your dreams to avoid her resentment, and when she gives you affection again, it feels like heaven, but not because it's love, but because it's relief, because the tension finally broke and she's warm again. So you think things are getting better, but really you're just back at the start of the loop. And this is how manipulation becomes your lifestyle, not with chains, but with inconsistencies. And the longer you stay, the more normal it feels to be unsure, to be blamed, to walk on edge, and you lose track of how long you've been trying to get back to that first version of her, the one who seemed to really see you, who made you feel alive. And the tragic truth is that version of her only existed to gain control, not to build love. And now she knows your patterns, knows your triggers, knows when to distance herself and when to come close. And you're stuck between craving her affection and fearing her silence. And this isn't love, it's emotional captivity. And if this sounds like your life, you need to understand something very clearly. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not asking for too much. You are experiencing manipulation designed to make you feel those things. And the only way to win is not to explain your pain, not to get her to admit what she's doing, not to wait for her to change. It's to step back, quietly, fully, and take inventory of who you were before this cycle started, and rebuild from there, not with blame, but with truth, not with guilt, but with clarity. And that means no longer justifying red flags because of shared memories, no longer chasing closure from someone who benefits from your confusion, and no longer waiting for someone who disappears when accountability shows up. And if you're scared to leave because you think no one will understand this. Staying in a cycle that erases your identity is not love. It's slow emotional death, and you cannot heal in the same environment that caused your wounds. And you cannot keep returning to someone who uses love as leverage and expects you to earn basic decency with obedience. And if you want to take your power back, it starts with emotional discipline, with learning that not every silent treatment deserves a reaction, not every guilt trip deserves an explanation, and not every manipulation deserves another chance. And this is how you reclaim yourself, not by getting revenge, not by making them see your worth, but by refusing to let your emotions be someone else's tool ever again. And that means building a life where your peace is protected by distance. Your clarity is stronger than your longing, and your love for yourself is no longer up for negotiation. Number 4. She shames your masculinity. It starts when she criticizes what you're proud of, when your strength becomes something she jokes about, when your assertiveness is labeled aggression, when your leadership is mocked as control, when your silence is called weakness, and when your focus is treated like neglect, and you don't notice it at first because it sounds playful, because it comes with a smile, because it's dressed in sarcasm, but underneath it's cutting at something deeper. It's training you to associate shame with your nature, and slowly you start doubting the things that once made you confident, second-guessing the instincts that once made you reliable, softening your tone when you speak truth, shrinking yourself in moments that require presence, not because you've changed, but because you've been trained to believe that who you are is too much, too hard, too cold, too direct, too logical, too focused, too independent. And the truth is, it's never been about your character. It's about control. Because when someone can make you ashamed of what makes you grounded, they no longer need to argue with you. They just need to make you feel wrong for being you. And when you start apologizing for being decisive, for being structured, for being forward, you start betraying yourself in small ways, saying yes when you mean no, avoiding leadership when you feel called to guide, hiding your insight so others don't feel insecure, and soon your self-betrayal becomes your baseline. And this is the invisible damage no one talks about, the psychological erosion that happens when you allow someone to redefine strength as toxicity, to recode discipline as cruelty, to label your clarity as arrogance. And if you've ever been in a place where every natural instinct you express is met with suspicion, resistance, sarcasm, or shame, then you know exactly what this feels like. And if you've started dimming your light to make someone else feel brighter, you are not evolving. You are erasing. And you need to wake up to this before your identity becomes a performance you maintain just to avoid conflict. Because when she mocks your goals, your structure, your mindset, she's not challenging you. She's sabotaging you under the mask of honesty. And this is the difference between a partner and a critic. One holds you accountable while honoring your essence. The other deconstructs your essence until you're unrecognizable to yourself. And the longer you stay in that space, the harder it becomes to see the manipulation for what it is, because you've been trained to believe that pleasing others is growth, that staying quiet is maturity, that being accepted means abandoning your instincts. But the truth is, real connection never requires you to shrink. And if someone makes you feel small when you speak with certainty, if they shame your ambition, minimize your dreams, mock your structure, you are not loved, you are managed. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you move when your intent is clear. And if someone feels the need to constantly remind you to be less, to soften your drive, to delay your action, it's because they benefit from your confusion, not your clarity. And the more they succeed in making you second-guess yourself, the less you lead your life with authority. And this is why you have to draw the line, not by convincing her, not by defending yourself endlessly, but by standing in who you are so completely that no opinion can override your own vision. And this is where Stoic discipline becomes critical, because your job is not to change her mind. It's to stay unmoved by emotional tactics meant to shift your center. And if someone is constantly agitated by your presence, your truth, your firmness, then it's not because you're wrong. It's because you're reminding them of the standard they abandoned. And instead of rising, they want you to lower yours. And the moment you do, you start losing the very thing that made you valuable to begin with. And this is why you don't argue. You don't plead. You don't try to explain masculinity to someone who only wants to shame it. You live it with such quiet strength that anyone trying to control you is left talking to themselves. And if they leave because of that, let them, because anyone who mocks your foundation was never building with you in the first place. And if you're asking how to stop this cycle, start by making peace with being misunderstood, by no longer shrinking in the face of discomfort, by standing firm when your values are challenged, and by refusing to beg for the kind of love that can only survive if you pretend to be someone you're not. And when you do that, you reclaim more than your pride. You reclaim your center, and that center is not up for debate. Number 5. She breaks your values. A person who crosses your core values without hesitation, without apology, and without change is not just hurting you. They're reshaping you, turning your silence into consent, and if you allow it long enough, your values won't just bend, they'll disappear. Not because you forgot who you were, but because you kept allowing someone into your life who refused to respect the non-negotiable, and over time what was once a firm line becomes a blurry memory, and you find yourself tolerating what you once swore you'd never allow, excusing the inexcusable in the name of love. And this is the slow death of identity. It doesn't happen with one betrayal. It happens through repetition, through exposure, through the false hope that one day they'll see the damage they're causing and change on their own. But that's the trap, because someone who violates your values and stays comfortable doing so isn't looking for connection. They're testing how far you'll go to keep them around, and every time you say it's okay when it's not, every time you say I forgive you just to stop the fight, every time you say I understand when your gut screams that you don't, you're not saving the relationship. You're killing the parts of you that keep you whole. And people think betrayal only looks like cheating. But betrayal is also emotional dishonesty, disrespect of boundaries, neglect of effort, constant minimization of your beliefs. And when someone makes you feel wrong for wanting honesty, loyalty, accountability, they're not just crossing lines. They're redrawing your world so their dysfunction becomes your normal. And it's not about perfection, it's about principle, because you can love someone deeply and still realize they are not aligned with your values. And the mistake people make is thinking, time invested is more important than peace maintained, so they stay and justify and wait and hope and shrink and suffer, and one day they wake up so disconnected from themselves that they have to rebuild from scratch. And if you're listening to this right now, and you feel that knot in your chest, that pull in your soul, that whisper in your mind saying, this isn't right, then you already know what needs to happen, and it's not another conversation, not another compromise, not another chance. It's a decision, a full-bodied decision to choose yourself, even if it means walking away from the person you thought was your forever. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it hurts. But what hurts more is staying in a space where your values are mocked, your standards are negotiable, your voice is silenced, and your love is only appreciated when it's convenient. And here's the truth. Nobody wants to say, someone who can violate your values and feel no remorse is already gone emotionally, and the only reason they're still around is because they know you haven't accepted that yet. And the minute you do, the minute you say, I'm done living in a house that I can't breathe in, you get your life back. Not just your time, but your dignity, your clarity, your sense of right and wrong. Because values aren't just beliefs. They're your compass, your direction. And when someone rips the compass out of your hands, you don't just get lost. You lose time. You lose energy. You lose years trying to convince yourself that you can love someone into integrity, but you can't, because integrity isn't taught, it's chosen, and the person who breaks your values and doesn't feel it, doesn't see it as betrayal, they see it as their right. And if you stay, you teach them they're correct. And if you want to reclaim your self-worth, it begins not with rage, not with vengeance, but with silence, with distance, with rebuilding your house from the ground up and deciding that next time, access to your heart requires alignment with your core, and no matter how charming, beautiful or familiar someone is, if they don't respect your values, they don't respect you. And when you finally enforce that truth, you don't just protect your peace, You evolve into someone who will never again apologize for having standards that honor the life you're building. They never wanted you to hear this, because a man who sees clearly is a man who can't be controlled, and once you reclaim your peace, your boundaries, your vision, you become dangerous to every system built on your silence. That's why the Stoic relationship blueprint exists, to give you the tools they hope you never find. It's not just a book, it's a weapon of clarity. It's now in audiobook format, so you can walk, jog, drive, live, and still feed your mind with timeless principles that will reshape everything. Comment, "I choose clarity," if you're ready to grab it now. The link is in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, and share it to help other men escape the cycle of silent suffering before it costs them years they can't get back.